Peter is in Thirsk, in North Yorkshire. Peter, how are you?
I'm very well, sir.
How are
you?
you? I'm glad to hear it. Now, what's happened to your party?
It's awful. I am feeling some hubris because about 3 or 4 years ago, I used to listen to your show to the Labour Party members, and I used to smile to myself and think, at least our lot aren't like that. But now it's being visited upon.
You're speaking of you're drawing parallels with the Corbyn years, yes, of course.
Yeah. And you know, the party has been taken by people who have foundations of sand, both in terms of policy and process. So, and it just is unfair. It doesn't just look unfair. The policy approach is distinctly unfair. The poorest people in society aren't going to food banks for the fun of it. You know, food banks used to be derided slightly, and I used to have to correct people at party events. They'd say, "Oh, you see fat people at food banks," you know, and it was just disgraceful then, and they've grown like Topsy. It is ridiculous that we have people in this nation in the 2022, and they are having to rely on charity to feed their children. Not just on benefits to feed their children, because the welfare state should provide for people, but they're having to rely on charity. And it almost makes one weep. And this has just been compounded by, you know, the loss of real direction of travel with a coalition government between 2010 and 2015, the complete disarray in policy terms that existed between 2015 and 2019, because everything was shaped in the sense of leave or remain.
Yeah.
So no coherence of policy. Boris Johnson as the leader of the party. Now, one thing to one side, yes, after his immediate election mandate, the whole country, the whole world ground to a standstill virtually. So any government would have faced difficult times. And I don't want to get into the debate about the decision making.
No, we won't.
But any government would have had to.
It was uncharted waters, and you can't apply the normal rules of analysis or scrutiny.
Yeah, but even in there, once we were coming out of it, the way in which senior people in the party behaved was simply not good enough. The sense of self-discipline. And people did not have the courage to say, look, I am not going to go on the Today programme and defend the fact that you've done something which is clearly egregious, that you have clearly misled the House. You know, whether or not it's inadvertent, side issue. But we seem to have got into this situation where you invented the term gen-rigged. You know, people were trust-rigged over the weekend in the sense that they'd got out. Even she went out.
Defended it.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it was just a blatantly unfair policy. And what she had forgotten, and this is getting to the toast argument,
go on.
But what she had forgotten is that she does not have a parliamentary majority of her own.
No.
Okay.
For anything.
And she has compounded that by casting out to the wilderness virtually anybody who did not support her leadership campaign. And then how was that successful? I regret to have to say it, but I do meet a lot of people who would not have voted for Rishi. Rishi is my MP. I know him because I go to constituency events. I don't know him particularly well.
Sure.
You know, but for Rees-Mogg to describe him as a socialist, you know, the guy's got an estate.
Yes.
You know, and he was talking sense. You've got to have enough money to pay for the services that you want to provide. And so we've got the situation now where they are sharpening their knives on the welfare issue. I suspect that the head of the pin that they will try to get people to dance on is everybody who's on UC is getting the £1,200 additional.
Right.
And they will try to say that makes it up to being the same as inflation.
You might be
right. It's complete nonsense.
It doesn't, but it won't.
It is going to make... I have got a particularly good friend who's an MP in a red wall seat. I'm not going to name him.
No, you better not.
He's a wonderful guy who's been working like a trooper.
I'll take your word for it.
For his income after 2024.
Yeah, and a lot of that 2019 intake, I mean, are not. They don't. Let's just say they don't have estates. They don't have financial security to fall back on. Some of them are probably unemployable, to be honest with you, Peter. But I wouldn't include your pal in that category, because if you speak highly of him, that's good enough for me. But I can't see anyone queuing up to offer Jonathan Gullis a job anytime.
Some people, yeah, but don't forget, there's something called a paper candidate.
Yes,
and the people I'm speaking of were paper. You go to be a paper candidate once,
yes,
where you're going to lose, and you know you're going to lose. In 2019,
they all got in.
Paper candidates got in.
They did.
And surprise, they're not very good.
Briefly, what does the light at the end of the tunnel look like? Then you've described the tunnel very beautifully. What does the light at the end of it look like from the point of view of the party that you clearly still feel for and adhere to?
At the moment, I would vote for Rishi, but I wouldn't vote for the Conservatives. Do you get my point?
Yeah, no, I do. So that would for you, that might be a way back if they did manage somehow to do a swap at the top.
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying for him as a constituency.
Oh, I see. In a general election,
I do not see the Conservatives unless something really outstanding happens. And I'm old enough to remember 1992 and that period. I was working in the Home Office at the time of the latter part of that, between 94 and 96.
Yeah.
And, we could have 2 years of the country being in complete disarray because the parliamentary majority is not there for Liz Truss to get through some of the nonsense that she seems to be wedded to. And I don't know. There may be a light at the end of the tunnel, but it may be, in all probability, it's being carried by a bloke called Starmer.
And you said it. And of course, the from their point of view, the light at the end of the tunnel is that this campaign or this platform or these policies that you find so alienating, their light at the end of the tunnel will be that they are actually the right thing to do and they will work, which is magical thinking. It is built almost entirely upon faith and belief, which is why they were so keen to keep the OBR out of the picture with their pesky calculations, forecasts and predictions. Peter, thank you. That was incredibly powerful.